Hi, I'm filmmaker and artist Daniel Cox, and you are listening to the Unfreaking Believable podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Unfreaking Believable podcast. We invite you to pull up a chair, relax, and join in for the next 30 minutes or so as we bring you guests who will share with you the moments that made a difference in their lives. And it's all because of one inciting incident. We believe that life is infinitely stranger than fiction, stranger than anything the mind can invent. You might even say it's unfreaking believable. Welcome to the podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Jen.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Betsy. How's everyone doing today?
Awesome.
Good. I feel like we haven't been together in a while.
No,
We haven't.
It's been at least, 2.5 weeks since we've chatted live and in person.
Yes. And I have some news.
Oh, share
what's
your
your
news,
Jenny?
I'm going to have an article published in WriterCon magazine next month.
Fantastic.
Yay. Congratulations.
I'm so excited.
That'll be great because you'll be able to officially put published author behind your name before your book even comes out.
Yes, because I was not thinking I was going to have that published author title until December, but now it'll be next month. Huzzah!
Yay.
And in fact, by the time our listeners hear this, it will already be out.
Yay! Indeed. So go look it up, WriterCon magazine. You know, we're all about that WriterCon.
Subscribe on Substack.
Yes.
All right, Jen, you got a word for the day today?
I do. And I've chosen this one specifically because our guest is a fan of Japanese culture. So I chose a word of Japanese origin today. And the word is ubatori, which is an ancient Japanese idiom that translates to the art of not comparing yourself to others.
I love that.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Ubatori.
Yep, it's intended to be sort of a reminder that we all, like flowers, have our own unique path, our own unique
we bloom
growth.
in our own season.
Right. Plums, peaches, and apricots and cherries all bloom differently, but they all bloom. And that's sort of the idiom origin.
That is such a feel-good one. I love this.
I like that. Yeah. That's fantastic. I love that. Great word of the day. Now, Jenny, you've got some fun facts for us today too, don't you?
I do. For over 30 years, Canada and Denmark have playfully been fighting for control of a tiny island near Greenland called Hans Island. Once in a while, when officials from each country visit, they leave a bottle of their country's liquor as a power move.
That's brilliant.
That might be the most Danish and Canadian thing I've ever heard.
Right?
It is, because they're so kind.
Right. They're polite about it, but they're also quite adamant about, mine. So
mine. I love it. All right. You got another fun fact for us?
All right. And my second fun fact of the day, this one I did for Jen because I know you love my timeline fun facts. So George Washington died in 1799, and the first dinosaur fossils weren't found until 1824, which means George Washington never knew dinosaurs existed.
Wow.
Oh,
that blows my mind.
I don't know why that makes me so happy.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe I don't think it makes me a little sad because I had ancestors who served with George Washington in the French and Indian War, and then went on to serve with him in the Revolution, and then went on to be the head of his War Department. So
right on.
I feel there's a connection to George Washington because of my family history going back and crossing paths with him. So I love dinosaurs. I love, the study of fossils. I really considered a career in archaeology when I was young. I just realized I didn't want to be on my knees digging in the dirt all the time. So I became a landscape designer. And I didn't do that for very long because I was right. I didn't like doing that. But it's sad to me that he didn't know that there were dinosaurs, because I think
there's so many famous people out there and just regular everyday people. Anybody who literally died before 1824 had no idea.
Wow.
Yeah,
Unfreaking believable.
it
Although I
is.
would posit that they actually did find fossils before that, they just didn't know what they were, hence why
Right.
people believed in dragons.
Well, that's true.
Hmm.
So
That's
I
true.
suspect they just wrote it off to being dragons
Yeah, that's
or
entirely possible.
monsters.
Yeah.
We don't know if dragons haven't existed. I keep dragons up there on my Bigfoot with Bigfoot and Yeti and everything.
Yep.
I can't say anything because my deep and abiding love for Nessie. So I'm just gonna
Right.
have to roll
Yeah, because
Just
I
another
love,
form of
I love
dinosaur.
dragons.
with that.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's the water dragon.
There you go.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we've got a big episode today. So, is everybody ready to get started?
I'm so excited. Okay, so today's guest is my pick, and I am thrilled to introduce Daniel Cox, who, full disclosure, is a longtime dear friend. I'm not going to say old and dear friend because there's no need to be rude. But Dan is best known for his viral PSA "Embrace Life, Always Wear Your Seatbelt," which has been viewed over 20 million times on YouTube, and it has won multiple awards, including the coveted Bronze Lion Award at the Cannes Film Festival. He's also won regional BAFTA awards for 2 of his short films, and he has got, as always, a dozen creative irons in the fire, including children's books. Dan, welcome.
Thank you so much for
Welcome.
having me.
Welcome.
It's a thrill. Thank you.
Well, I'm so excited to have you here, and just this is one of those moments that's kind of like one of those seminal moments in my life because I get to have you on something that's so important to me, and you've been so important to me over the years because we're, as I said, very long time friends. I actually met Dan before I graduated from college.
Wow.
Yeah,
is
That was a day
true.
or two ago.
yeah.
Just a
So
couple.
I'm going to actually throw this out there. I wasn't going to do this, but I'm going to throw it out there just because it's a good story and it ties into the filmmaking stuff. When I met Dan, I was actually interning. I was doing my teaching internship as an exchange student in England. So I was living there at the time, and Dan was actually in what's called sixth form, which is kind of like junior college for us, but it's housed in the same building as sort of the last year of high school. So it's like if you took senior year and junior college and put it together, you'd have sixth form. And so his class schedule wasn't like most of the class schedules of the kids I was teaching and whatever. And anytime I came into the English department office, he was always in there editing film. Literally every time I walked in there, he was, and the room was the size of a walk-in closet. Let's be honest. I mean, it was tiny. There was room for 3 chairs and 2 desks, and that was it. And he was always at one desk, and then I would have to take over the other desk, which belonged to the department head. And eventually I just started teasing him, like, do you ever go to class? Like, are you ever?
I need to reply to this. I mean, no, I didn't go to class, but it has served me fairly well. I'd also, I think we can date it by the fact that quite a lot of that editing was VHS to VHS.
Oh, yeah.
Indeed.
So that's all I need to say. I'm sure your listeners will work out a timeline based on that.
Yeah. That's video cassette tapes, people.
Yeah.
For you young
The Gen
who don't know
Xers
what
and
it is.
baby boomers will.
I'm not
Yeah,
even
they'll
sure.
know.
Like, even some of the younger millennials might be hurting on that one. But
It's all retro for them. They love that
Yeah,
stuff.
it's all coming back, right?
yeah.
So everything comes back around.
When I finished my internship, I told Dan, I was like, hey, if you ever come to the States, feel free to come crash with me for a little while. And then the following summer, so I graduated in December, that following July, he came out and basically lived with us for 7 weeks.
Nice.
And it was great.
Right on.
And
That's fantastic. You know, it's a good friend when you can put up with them for 7 weeks. Some friends can't get along for 7 days.
yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, the amount of stories will I could go on forever, but yeah, Dan is an incredibly wonderful house guest, basically because the minute he got there, he was like family. And he and Buck, who was my boyfriend at the time, not even my husband, but they were thick as thieves within hours. And the shenanigans the two of them got up to are the stuff of legend, and the people at Tampa Airport are still afraid.
That's true.
That's awesome. That's
Dan, why don't you
fantastic.
tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, so I'm based in the United Kingdom. I live near the coast on the south coast, near Brighton. Um, and I've been filmmaking, gosh, for many, many years. But originally, I wanted to play professional soccer. And I got to a sort of semi-pro level with that over here. And then that wasn't working out. And I decided I'd go down a more artistic route. So it causes quite a lot of confusion because sport and art don't quite often mix. So so that was the routine. And then I, like most creatives, I've done many, many jobs whilst doing other projects. And when we get into my story a bit later, I'll expand on when it all changed for me and when I went full time. But I'm a Star Wars kid, so I'm just going to get that out there because I know there's a lot of Star Trek fans as well. But that sort of was my main inspiration growing up, particularly creatures, prosthetics, all of that side. And so that's something that I've continued to do as well. And originally, going into film, I wanted to do the prosthetic side of things. So I used to make fake bodies and do that sort of work. But then started writing stories and putting those into it and just ran with that.
That's fantastic. I have a Klingon prosthetic forehead.
Yes, good.
I have a Bajoran forehead. I have ears. I have all kinds of Star Trek.
It's good to have random bits of foam or silicon anatomy.
Is it foam latex?
Yeah. My headpiece had this big shock of blonde hair that looked like Christina Aguilera. And I always wore white, and I would go to the cons and do the talent competitions, and I would win consistently. And then we put together a trio, including a trumpet player, and we did the Boogie Woogie Klingon. And it was hilarious.
I don't know. I'm sad
fun.
that this was before the advent of everything being on YouTube, because I would pay a small fee
I know.
to see that.
I don't even have pictures of it. I can't find them anywhere.
Bring it back. We need to see it.
It's in the attic, probably melted by now, but
Oh my gosh.
yeah, a lot of fun. So tell us about some of your projects that you've been working on, some of your films, some of your other things that you're doing.
Yeah, so at this moment in time, I'm doing a lot of work. I'm doing sculpting for myself. So I'm tending to do full-size creature heads
Cool.
of sort of mixed media. So quite a lot of them I'm sculpting in very basic air dry clay, and then sort of going for a hyper detailed finish with them. I would say like painting is probably my favorite part of the process. So I've been doing that quite a bit, and then also potentially moving into your field of writing a bit more for publishing. Yeah, I've written a lot of scripts, obviously, and done that sort of work, but quite a bit of my work tends to lean towards sort of children's books. And many people have said, hey, everyone else is doing children's books. Why don't you sort of translate some of that? So I've been chatting with Jen about doing that. And I have a short film that I wrote called Rumble Tum that went to an animation studio and was there for a couple of years, but unfortunately never got made. And the rights came back to me. And so I'm thinking of translating Rumble Tum, which is a little Christmas creature story.
Very cool. Yes.
So, yeah, it's kind of like Harry and the Hendersons meets The Borrowers.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Dan, for a gift for Jenny here, you have to tell Jenny your connection to the show Supernatural.
Oh man, yes, we have to share with me.
Lord of Pain.
Oh, yeah. So with the assistance of Jen and her husband Buck, who exec produced for me, I made a short film many moons ago called Lord of Pain, which was around the time that all the grindhouse sort of style films, Quentin Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez, were doing. Yeah, and they ran a competition, and we made a tiny little short, a British version of Grindhouse. So very eccentric, weird English kind of absurdity. And we decided to expand it into a sort of like a 40-minute short. And one of the actresses at that time who came and worked with us and was fabulous was Ruth Connell.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my goodness.
Cool.
The Queen of Hell herself.
And so Jenny, I'm going to give you a little homework. You can find Lord of Pain on YouTube. It is there. We did find it.
Oh, I'll be looking.
Unofficially.
Unofficially. Yeah, it's sort of like almost like a bootleg version. I didn't even put it up myself. Someone else did. But, that's the way it rolls.
So if I ever go
That's
to
how it
another
rolls.
Supernatural
That's
con,
fantastic.
I'm going to take a still from that of Ruth and have her sign it because I think she'll get a good guffaw out of that.
There you go. Ruth's fabulous. Everyone was great on that film. We were really, really lucky. But Ruth was great. It wasn't long after that, actually, I think that she moved to your side of the pond.
I'm thinking we need to get Daniel over here for WriterCon one year.
I would love that. I would love that.
Yes.
I feel like an international representation for the United Kingdom. Maybe I could get some sort of like special permit or visa to come and represent the UK for WriterCon.
That would be lovely.
Yeah. We can work with the organizers to get you an invitation, and that way you can get your travel visa or whatever you need to get.
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to come and meet everyone. As I say, I'm an avid listener of this podcast, so
Awesome.
I am very aware of how great WriterCon has been for so many people. It's awesome. Yeah.
We can't help but talk about it.
I can see why. Yeah.
It's changed our lives. So,
And Daniel, I wanted to mention what you're talking about prosthetics. I grew up in kind of in the film industry, I guess. And one of the films that my father was working on that I was actually supposed to be in because of my blonde hair was the remake of The Time Machine, the 78 remake of The Time Machine. And I was so scared of the Morlocks, they actually took me to the studio in Salt Lake City to see all the prosthetics that they used for it. I was still too scared, even though I saw them all there. But I love all that prosthetic stuff. I was always into watching that on the different films we were on if they used them.
Yeah, that's amazing. I think the thing with creature work or prosthetics transformation, it's the transformation. It's like out of all the creatures I love the most, I think it's probably like werewolves of the traditional creatures.
Yeah.
There is something about that ability to become something else, to take on a persona of something else, which we all have obviously within our personalities. So I think seeing that and seeing an actor go through a process of life casting and then sculpting and then the pieces going on, it's for me it's still the magical part of it. It never gets tired. I never get tired of of seeing it.
I am definitely a Gemini. I have that duality and probably a couple extra personalities running around in there, and they're probably all doubled because being a Gemini, that's just how it works. So yeah, I'm totally into that. I love doing theater. I love doing musicals. I had a couple of film bits that I did, just extra work. And so the idea of just being somebody else for a day or two, or even, just a few hours it's compelling to me. I'm drawn to it.
I think part of it is like when you're a child, you're encouraged, right, to play dress up, to become other people, to explore and that. And then obviously as we get older and go into adulthood, that's sort of like looked down upon unless you're an actor or an actress and so on. And I think it's a shame. I think there's a lot to be said. It's great to see like the world of cosplay it's just exploded in the past decade.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But that's such a thrill to see people be able to take on identities and personas that they really, really connect with and share that with other people. And, for the most part, in such an inviting sort of way. So the standards now of costuming, amongst hobbyists is incredible. Yeah.
And even within the book world, like Anne Rice for years, she went there, but it's her fans that every year in New Orleans in October, they put on the Anne Rice ball or the Vampire Lestat ball. And people come dressed as the characters or as their own versions of vampires. And Anne Rice went there all the time. Sadly, I was finally going to be able to go there with my niece in 2020, but because COVID happened, we didn't make it, but I've got my custom fangs, my contacts. I love the dress up.
It's fun.
Yeah, I love the dress up world. Same thing I have. I'm waiting to be able to go. One of my other favorite authors is Sarah J. Maas, and her fans put on balls because there's, with masquerade balls, there's people stuck in masks from a ball. So they put on these massive balls, and they're actually taking place out in the UK. They're finally coming out here to the States, but I've got my pointed fairy ears to put on, my lighter colored contacts, not red ones, because those are for my vampire, but like pastel colored contacts and stuff. I love the world of dress up.
Yeah, it's just great, like I say, especially now with people, there's so many options, there's so many great materials to use. It's so accessible with 3D printing also as well. There's just so many ways you can go into it. So Yeah, but for me, definitely Star Wars onwards, the heyday of the 80s creature work, Rick Baker, Rob Bottin, Stan
Oh yeah,
Winston.
Rick Baker, man.
Yeah, that's this could be an 8-hour podcast if we were to get into that. So
Yes.
So did you subscribe to Fangoria
yep,
magazine?
still have them all.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had those in my house growing up.
I still have all my Fangorias. Still have like all the Cinefex up until they stopped producing the actual magazine. Yeah,
Right
used to travel
Yeah.
specifically to go and buy Cinefex. Travel for an hour and get it.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant stuff.
So I have a sort of this is a random tie-in, but there's sort of logical steps to where this came from. But since we're talking about monster effects and dress up and that sort of stuff, so I know that you've come across a variety of people who do this for a living, including John Landis and some other people. But here is my random question for you. Okay, because I know you love to spring random questions on me, so I got one for you. All right, you have to pick the best classic monster and tell me why.
Okay, so when we say classic,
And you can't say Harry and the Hendersons.
okay. So when we say classic, what I'm going to do, I'm going to avoid the sort of 30s sort of horror period, the Dracula, the Frankenstein, and that. I'm going to go earlier.
Okay.
And for me, it's 100% Nosferatu.
I was to say, if you went before that, I know where you're going. Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah, the 22
Right
Max
on.
Shrek. That was sort of like, there were earlier ones, obviously, the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari and things which were amazing, but everything about that makeup in Nosferatu is incredible. The performance is incredible. Everything about it, the filmmaking techniques, the over cranking, under cranking, it's mind blowing to me that that's 102 years old. My maths isn't right.
Oh,
Right.
Yeah. So,
and it's brilliant.
and to this day, you look at a lot of vampire design and it's all
based on that.
Yeah, and even the performance, even those long hands, shadows up the wall, that German style of filmmaking. It's so, I think I've chosen wisely. I'm going to go Nosferatu, Max Schreck's performance. Yeah.
Skarsgård has a film. Bill Skarsgård he's going to be Nosferatu. I'm actually looking forward to it. And I'm not a fan of remakes, especially great classic movies, but I'm thinking this might be pretty good.
Matched with the director who made The Lighthouse and Northern as well.
Yes.
I've got and The Witch. So I've got kind of like hopes that I've got my fingers crossed. Let's put it that way. But Nosferatu 1922 is a pivotal film. I actually have a sculpt based on him right above me here. So
the one that did it for me, that really kind of got me into the whole creature feature thing. We always had the Friday night creature features, but there was one in the 70s, and I want to say 74, 75, called Gargoyles.
Yeah.
And it was campy and hokey.
Yeah.
But the introduction, they had this, deep voiced, kind of gothic sounding actor reading this lore about the gargoyles, and they're laying their eggs on planet Earth, and they're all going to hatch in 100 years. And now they're hatching. And so a scientist and his daughter are out in the desert, and they find them, and, hilarity ensues. But the costumes were so hinky. But there was something about it that, I was about the same age as the daughter, I guess maybe a little younger, but it was one of those that I was absolutely terrified to hear the intro. If I could skip that part and watch the rest of the movie, I was perfectly fine. But that was when I really understood the power of words and the power of the storyteller delivering them. And I had already decided I was going to be a writer. But that was one that just really sucked me in and really made me pay attention to how the words could make you feel. And that one is probably one of my favorites. So if anybody hasn't seen it, I think you can probably find it on YouTube. But it is, the costumes and everything are just completely hokey, and maybe the scripts aren't that great, but that one part, man, blows me away just thinking about it.
Betsy, fun fact about gargoyles, most of them are actually grotesques. The only ones that are gargoyles are the ones that spout water off buildings, because I believe the translation is to literally gargle water away from a building. Gargoyles.
Look at you sneaking in a fun fact.
I always have
These really look more like aliens. They weren't like the classic
Yep.
gargoyle that we think of.
I rewatch that every 10 years or so.
Yeah, I think it's worth a watch.
I'm going to put my my geek head on the block and say I think Stan Winston did gargoyles. I think.
I wouldn't be surprised if you're
So
accurate
that's
on
for all
that.
you listeners out there to boo
Google that.
or yay me for that one. But yeah.
So I'm prepared to choose violence here, and even though we don't do this or that anymore, I have a this or that for you.
Mhm.
Okay, so
I'll go for it.
and
Yeah.
this one's gonna be you're gonna have to think hard about it. Vincent Price or Peter Cushing?
Yeah, that is really, really difficult. So,
I told you I was choosing violence.
That's fighting words right there if I had to pick between the two.
yeah, I think you've played it well. I'm going to say Vincent Price, and I'll tell you why.
Okay, please.
I only learned in the past couple of months of the sheer volume of artwork that Vincent Price accumulated in his lifetime, and was a huge, huge connoisseur. And I believe a university on your fine side of the world has a whole gallery that was purposely built with his collection when he died. And he used to collect all these amazing pieces of artwork, and then young artists could come in and, like a library, could hire them and take them home with them.
Wow.
So they could come in, take a picture off the wall, take it away, study it, and bring it back. And he started that at the height of his career. And so I'm going to say, and this gives me the get out, Vincent Price, because of his ongoing contribution to the arts world.
Completely acceptable.
Yeah. He and I share the same birthday. So he was always my birthday twin.
But I do struggle to get past the image of Peter Cushing as Grand Moff Tarkin wearing his slippers on set, because he used to always perform in his slippers.
I imagine you have to be a fan of Lon Chaney, because I know you mentioned werewolves, and I believe he also did Phantom of the Opera.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, I think God, I'm just rolling out a few facts here, or obviously fact check them, and they could be wrong. I think Peter Jackson, the filmmaker, owns Lon Chaney's original makeup kit.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was so revered that he's ended up owning it. Lon Chaney.
I love Peter Jackson because he redid my favorite book series, or he made the movies to my favorite book series, The Lord of the Rings.
Yeah. And there are a series of films that were the perfect blend of every filmmaking technique you could throw at them, which is why I think they still stand up so well today, from miniatures to VFX to prosthetics to just the overall design of them, or bigatures as they described them, because the models were so massive. But
the Natural History Museum in Los Angeles currently has possession of Lon Chaney's makeup kit.
Thank you for sharing that.
So you can go.
Betsy's the Google queen.
You can go see it. I don't know who owns it, but they currently have it on display. And you were correct on gargoyles.
All right.
Stan Winston.
1 out of 2. That's pretty good for me.
Look, any baseball team would hire you if you bat 500. So that's good.
Yeah.
So obviously I could, as I do at least 3 or 4 times a week, meander in conversation with you forever. But we obviously brought you here for a particular reason, to tell us a particular story. And you've gained a lot of recognition in your filming career and in your writing career as well, for having a unique voice. So I know that you have a very unique story to tell us. So Dan, the microphone is all yours.
We'd like to thank the sponsor of this episode, Cultured Creature Beard Balm. Do you have a bearded someone in your life, possibly yourself, who's looking a little unruly? Meet man's new best friend, Cultured Creature Beard Balm.
Cultured Creature Beard Balm is a game changer, made with all natural ingredients like mango butter, shea butter, argan, avocado, jojoba, grapeseed, and meadow foam seed oil. It nourishes your man's beard and skin beneath. Say goodbye to dryness and itchiness, and hello to a soft, well-groomed, and great-smelling beard.
Not only will it tame a manly mane, but it will also leave you with a subtle masculine scent, with options like Cuban tobacco, sandalwood and bourbon, cedar and leather, and more. You'll feel confident all day, whether it's in the office, a night out on the town, or at the gym.
Cultured Creature Beard Balm is handmade, organic, and natural. It's made by a father-daughter duo with over 20 years of beard care experience, and it's made right here in the USA.
If you're ready to see your man's beard transformed, visit refineyourwildside.com and use promo code UFB10 for an extra 10% off your first order. Plus, all Culture Creature Beard Balm products are already 20% off, so that's 30% off your first order.
Cultured Creature Beard Balm, where nature meets nurture for the ultimate beard care experience. Don't tame your wild side, refine it with Cultured Creature Beard Balm.
Thank you so much. So, interestingly, as we spoke about 1920s and silent film with Nosferatu, actually, the idea of creating images has been with me for a long time, and also that idea of making things accessible. So, I should dial back to a situation where I went through a very personal, life-changing tragedy within my family. And it was making films after I sort of came out of the wilderness of that really helped, through the power of art, helped shape my new life post this event. So with that, I started to make a series of short films. We touched upon eventually getting to Lord of Pain. But I wanted to give back in some way and use art as a transformative effect, and both for myself moving forward, but also to contribute something to society if I could using art. And so I approached, in the UK, I approached at a governmental level to work on road safety. Not the most sexy of subjects, perhaps, for filmmaking, but an important one to me. And I actually got about 30 seconds into a phone call and was told to go away because I didn't have an agent. And so at that point, I decided that it was my mission then to make sure that that film got made. And through various ways, we managed to get a very tiny budget together. And I connected with a producer called Sarah Alexander. And I don't think I've ever been able to be in a situation to publicly say how much of an impact she had on me and what a support she was. She was actually working at a time at a film studio, and we would start working on what turned out to be Embrace Life at about 10 o'clock at night and work till about 2 or 3 in the morning. Then she would get back up, go into work, and work in a film studio from about 8 in the morning. And we just started to chip away at it. We found the right people to support the project. And this is sort of like part of the message, really, of whatever you're trying to do, if it's something that you truly believe in, to just keep working at it. And we ended up in a situation where we raised the budget, and over the course of a year, we worked on it for free just to keep pushing through. And we got to get to a situation where we had only one of 2 high-speed cameras that were in the UK to film it on. We ended up with 90,000 watts of lighting to try and get this made, because you need a lot of light when you shoot high speed. And the basic premise was to create a story that had no language in it, so that anybody could see it around the world and we could share it that way. And we got to a point where we started to film it, and we had our first day of shooting, and we got to the end of that Saturday. And I cannot tell you how tiny the budget was. The original budget, I would say, would be about $12,000. And this is a 2-day studio shoot with about 30 people. And the support we got was absolutely incredible to get this made. But we got to the end of the first day, and the sprinkler system came on inside the studio and rained down on our hand-built set. And just everything went chaos. Yeah, we had to get all the actors out. We had a £100,000, $130,000 camera and lenses that was getting rained on, which we had to get out. And my abiding memory from that moment is sort of looking at Sarah, her looking at me. We had this completely destroyed set. We were sort of 3 or 4 inches in water up to our ankles. And we just looked at each other and knew that we were coming back the next day, just she and I, and we had to physically rip down the set and turn around. And it was one of those moments where you can go one or two ways. You can obviously like put your head in your hands, or you can. We just decided that we're going to press on, and fortunately, we had shot one of kind of like the hero shots of the piece. So it's only a 90-second short film, but we had this hero shot, and we took it back to the client that was helping fund it, and based off of that shot, within a month, we managed to get full funding. In fact, we got quite a lot more money to go and get it made, and we went to a bigger studio and we built a bigger set, and we spent a day and a half filming it and got this project done and saw it to fruition. And that's really like the whole crux of the story for me, is to be persistent with your dreams and to be persistent if there's something you truly believe in. Always take on really great advice from people, always make sure you're putting the effort where it needs to be. But we sort of pushed through with it. And then we ended up in a situation where we just calmly released it out onto YouTube. And within 2 weeks, we had 1 million views. And it went viral. And we knew it had started to do really well when it got spoofed. Wanda Sykes spoofed it on her show. And it's just sort of gone on from there and gone around the world and been shared by up to 20 million people now. We've had multiple letters from people saying they never used to wear the seatbelt, saw it, and now do wear the seatbelts, and then were in accidents and it saved their life.
And that's really the point, right? Like that's just the whole moment of if you know that there have been lives saved by all the effort that you went through, that's the vindication for all of it right there.
Yeah,
I think as artists, all our work has an impact on people, and you never know how much of an impact it has. So that can be from an author giving people escapism away from situations, perhaps in their home life, for example, that they can take your stories as authors with them wherever they are, and you can go into that safe place within your life. In this case, it was a literal one. And with that, it came to a point where we realized that it made an impact in a way that was everything that we'd hoped it would do. But you just never know. You release these projects when they're done and they go out into the world. And after that, it's not your responsibility anymore. You just, it is, as so often said, it's a bit of a birthing process. And from that situation, it's just really brought home to me the power of storytelling, and that there is always an audience for your work. You just have to trust that it will be found and make what's really important to you. And that can be pure escapism. That can be, ironically, most of the things that I dream up are quite absurd, weird little stories. But it happened to be in this area, I think, because I cared so much about the subject matter, that it went out into the world. And you can find it on YouTube, have a look, see what you think. And hopefully, because it was a positive, not a finger wagging exercise, it was a positive, supportive approach, an altruistic approach, that it resonated with people. And still to this day, I think it was only I checked before I came on, and it's about a week ago we had the last comment, and it's been out for quite a few years now. So,
wow. I have watched it, and it is fantastic. And I'm a safety specialist. It's one of the things I do here. And one of our missions is for people to, have a safe and healthful workplace, to have a safe and healthful community to live in, but also to have safe and healthful roadways. And sadly, in my community, our seatbelt rate is about 80%. And it's becoming more and more of the younger drivers, but we also know that it's primarily, and I'm not picking on guys, but it's primarily men. And if you put all the stats together, it's men in white pickup trucks, which pretty much describes the entire workforce in Oklahoma, because, it's a rural state. We do a lot of farming. We do a lot of oil and gas. We do a lot of petrochem. And so that's one of our missions, is to make sure that people buckle up. It's the easiest, fastest, and cheapest way to save a life. And to drive that message home, your video is so impactful and so powerful. And definitely you can tell it's given from a place of love and pain. And, I sat and watched it. I was just in tears. It's fantastic.
Thank you. I think it's, art's so important, in all its facets. Just before we began this podcast, we were saying that I'm drawn to any medium. Particularly, I'm interested in things that I know nothing about, whether that's crochet, whether that's whatever it might be, because art is like everything, I think, as a transformative and impactful form that we have as human beings, and that it's something that we can share. And storytelling comes in so many forms.
Yeah.
So the fact that, like, as I've mentioned a couple of times, like Nosferatu, this silent film that terrified me as a kid, but actually I've made a film that has no language in it, that uses so many similar techniques to that, and yet it is about wearing a seatbelt. It is about the love of a family. It is about thinking about other people. So you're taking similar methodologies to make something, and yet going in two completely different directions. And that never fails to wow me when people put pieces of work together that you just see and you're moved by them, whether you're an author, whether you're a sculptor, whatever form it takes.
And you did a follow-up to Embrace Life that had to do with motorcycle helmets, didn't you?
Yeah, so we did one where we wanted to, in the same way that Embrace Life was a positive campaign for seatbelts, I wanted to do one specifically around motorbikes, because disproportionately there's a much higher situation with accidents with motorbikes. So we wanted to use positivity again, aimed at motorcycle riders. I come from a family, I've always grown up around motorbike riders, so there's lots in here. In fact, relatives still race, and that was a possibility for me as a filmmaker to stretch out. And we shot on 35mm film, we shot with anamorphic lenses, and it was just a great opportunity to again create something positive, show that motorcyclists can be heroes to the generations both below them and also to their peers as well, and that by choosing or making wise decisions, you can increase the impact that you have on those around you. So that was an amazing experience, and that ended up being used by Ducati all around the world in their dealerships as well. So
that's fantastic.
It got right into the heart of the audience, I think, with that. And again, it's showing people it's not wagging the finger, which certainly in the UK, a lot of safety orientated filmmaking in the past has always been blood and guts.
Yeah, we don't like that.
Well, it's easy to scare people and it has an impact on a certain volume of people, but actually, do you want to recall positivity, positive thoughts, or do you want to be scared by something?
Yeah. And the goal really isn't to scare people, it's to get them to take action. That's the ultimate goal of any kind of safety video or any kind of PSA. It's to get them to understand the risks and take action to protect themselves. So what you're doing with that, I think, is just fantastic. Peer-to-peer education is huge. So we do that, especially with the younger generation. We find it's more effective than somebody standing up and saying, you should do this, you should do that. No, I'm doing this for me and you should too, is more effective. So kudos to you.
I tell you, it always blows my mind. I spent, Dan, about a little over 11 years as a firefighter EMT, and it just blows my mind how many people don't wear helmets and do not wear seatbelts.
Yeah, it was a big surprise for me in terms of the seatbelt situation, particularly in the UK. Growing up, it seemed to be every other advert was some sort of road safety thing. So when I was kind of given the opportunity to choose, because most people over here would think about cell phone use, for example, or distracted driving, which are all obviously an issue as well. But the fact that seatbelts were still an issue really, really surprised me for something, as Betsy rightly said, which is just such an easy thing to do. And again, it's thinking of the wider impact that your actions have on other people. So that's such a straightforward and easy thing to do. So that's why I chose it, because to me, it was a bit of a challenge. I grew up seeing these adverts and clearly they've had some impact, but not the impact that you would hope for. And so we wanted to contribute to that space. Yeah.
And we will share both of those links with our listeners in our Facebook group and on our other socials, so that people can have the opportunity to see that. And hopefully all of our listeners are seatbelt wearers or helmet wearers if they ride motorcycles. But just in case, maybe we'll put one more thought in the mind of someone who could be just a little bit safer.
Yeah.
Yeah. I hopefully both of them are seen as a celebration of life, really.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I always viewed them. I mean, it's about making decisions that give you the greatest chance to be there for other people as well as for yourself. So, they found their audience, and I feel very privileged to have had the opportunity to create them.
Dan, why don't you share with our listeners where they can find you and learn more about you?
Yeah, so my website is daniel-cox.com. That's cox.com. And my Instagram is predominantly my street photography. So this is another area that I do. So you won't see too much of my film work, but Instagram obviously is perfect for street. And that is at Daniel Cox Film. And you can see a lot of my street work there, which is a lovely way to work for me because it means that rather than sitting staring at my laptop or a pad writing scripts and creating, I get to go out and be in amongst people and to be in the moment, and you have to be responsive. And sometimes I've even said this to my nephew, who's also a photographer. Sometimes it's the shots I don't actually get, but as long as I've seen the shot, as long as I saw it at that moment in front of me, saw the story, that still gives me a great deal of satisfaction. So yeah, street photography is most of my work online.
Well, Dan, thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing your story and explaining what makes you so unfreaking believable, at least in part. And I'd also like to thank my lovely co-hosts, my safety queens. Listeners, if you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it on whatever platform you listen on. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, Amazon Music, and Audible, and soon to come, YouTube.
Ooh, and you can join our Unfreaking Believable Facebook group and follow us on TikTok and Instagram. You can also join us on Patreon for exclusive content and other perks for as little as $1 a month. That's less than going to Starbucks for a coffee. So, help some sisters out.
You can also visit our website at www.ufbpodcast.com. And if you have an unfreaking believable story, reach out to us at ufbpodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to hear your story too. Betsy, why don't you send us out with a quote of the day?
All right, so my quote of the day comes from Bill Bradley, who says, "Ambition is the path to success. Persistence is the vehicle you arrive in, and hopefully you're buckled up."
Oh, nice.
Love it.
Perfect. Well, thank you everyone for joining us on the Unfreaking Believable podcast on this wonderful summer day. Remember, as you go out into the world this week, don't just be awesome.
Be unfreaking believable.
See you all next time.